Welcome to the TomorrowZone Catalyst Podcast. I'm your host, Deb Reuben. Everywhere you turn, people are talking about AI, some with excitement, some with fear, and many more with confusion. But what if we reframe the conversation? What if the real opportunity isn't about replacing humans? What if it's about reimagining what's possible when human ingenuity meets AI capabilities? Today, we're diving deep into that idea with an awesome futurist, Jonathan Brill, to spark a different kind of conversation for equipment finance leaders and beyond. Jonathan Brill is a globally recognized futurist, #1 ranked by Forbes. He's the author of Rogue Waves and an advisor to some of the world's most transformative companies. He's spent his career helping leaders to spot, prioritize, and invent what happens next. In this episode, Jonathan brings powerful cross-industry insights, and we explore what they mean for industries that are still on the edge of modernization. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Deborah, it's good to see you again. I love being on your show and talking with you. You're so insightful about the space.
I'm really excited to talk with you and geek out a little bit about AI and what it could mean for the future of business. And, I know you're out and about, you're all over the world meeting with business leaders in all different industries. And so I was really excited to connect with you because I think that, you bring such a unique perspective, as a futurist, but also, you're very deep into the weeds on what really is possible with AI. And I think that you can help us to think differently, as so many of the leaders that I'm talking with across the equipment finance industry and beyond are really looking at how do we practically integrate AI into our organizations. So the first thing I wanted to dive into with you is, from your vantage point, Jonathan, as you're looking across multiple different industries, what are you noticing about how leaders are approaching AI adoption, and where are the biggest mindset gaps?
I think the biggest thing that people aren't getting is that if you just look at the trends, between now and 2030, the equivalent tools will decrease in cost by something like 100,000 times. And then when you look at the trends in terms of the quality of the technology, we're seeing something like a 30 times increase in quality between now and 2030. Now, it might be 16, it might be 64, but this is an exponential shift. And what I think people are thinking is like, what happens if it's twice as good as the best things today? What we need to be thinking about is, what if that $20 a month version of ChatGPT was a $2 million a month version of ChatGPT? That's the delta that we're dealing with. And I just don't think anybody is considering that scale shift.
It's kind of hard to wrap your head around it.
It's insane, right? When you think about the distance from San Francisco to Portland, Oregon, it's about 1,000 kilometers. Now, imagine if you just compressed that down, shrunk it down, and it was 1 centimeter, right? If it was literally just one key down on your keyboard to press that and be in Portland instantly, what would that be like? Right? These are the scale shifts we're talking about. When you think about 32 times increase in performance, right? The fastest person on the planet is Usain Bolt. He went 44.7 kilometers an hour for about 20 meters. Now, imagine strapping him into a jet going 32 times faster. He would be circling the Earth at the speed of sound 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, nonstop. Right? That's the shift in performance gain, human performance gain, that we're talking about with these tools. And I don't think people are really considering that. And I'm not talking about like the science fiction future and the Terminator and AGI and artificial superintelligence, all the things that sci-fi futurists talk about. I'm just talking about just straightforward math of the thing that is most likely to happen, even if you don't have religion around this stuff.
Yeah, and we're only talking about the next 5 years.
I'm talking about the next 5 years, and I might be wrong. It might be 6, it might be 7. But what I'm saying is, when you look at that trajectory, there's no reason to believe right now that's not true.
So how does that get folks into trouble as leaders as they're thinking about how they're approaching AI adoption?
I talk with a lot of leaders, and what I hear is I'm hanging out, I'm clicking on the free version of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. And the first thing you should do, if you're a leader, is get the $200 a month version, because that's at least 6 months newer. And what you'll discover is that these tools are absolutely incredible. So I went down to Chile. I was in Chile for a couple of weeks working with business and government leaders. And I'd done it in 2019. And I'd spent 40 or 60 hours doing economic research on the future of Chile, what they needed to do, policy recommend, whatever it was. And I'm a real expert on this, right? This time I spent 45 minutes. And admittedly, I know enough to know what's true and what's not, right? But I spent 45 minutes with ChatGPT, with O3 Pro, and which is their high-end version. And I got an economic assessment that was better than what I had done 6 years ago when I was running global intelligence for a Fortune 50 company. What happens when your intern has tools that are 30 times better than that? How do they make decisions? What happens when they have contextual analysis around every transcript, every Zoom conversation, every email across your organization? You might or might not allow them to do that, but some of your competitors will. So they have context. And what happens when, instead of just kind of making a knee-jerk assessment, is somebody who is like 22-year intern, right? What happens when they are able to simulate 100 or 1,000 times variations of what might happen next, the second-order impacts in your organization, what might happen in your industry, how ecosystems and financial trends might impact the risk of your decision, right? What happens when they're able to do that? Not just for your business, but when they decide where to go to lunch, right? What we're talking about is interns having nation-state level decisions to simulate power, to simulate decisions, right, in their pocket for $20 a month. So we're going to have to radically rethink the way we run our organizations moving forward. I mean, you don't have to, but if you're competing with an upstart that's AI native, they won't have had to figure this out. This is just how they'll work.
I love that. Radically rethinking how organizations work, because, I mean, it was fun to imagine Usain Bolt strapped to a jetpack and, orbiting the Earth at high speed, But, to stretch your imagination to something even more practical, what if your entry level people have nation state level capability for decision making? What does the world of work look like? And I love the thought about radically rethinking the world of work. But so many folks are caught up in their day to day that stretching your imagination in that way is kind of difficult. And so we get into this thought of, well, then what happens to our jobs? Right. When we have capabilities like this. Yeah. And so a lot of folks are fearing job loss from AI. Right. I'm curious how you're thinking about that. Where are they getting that right? Where are they misunderstanding the way the world of work is evolving? Because we need to be thinking radically different.
So Andy Jassy just yesterday or the day before put out a note saying, hey, we're going to be removing a whole bunch of management jobs at Amazon. And clearly they're going to be one of the leaders in this process. So watch what they do is the first answer to the question. They've already thinned out their middle management ranks, right? Normally that's kind of a pyramid where the CEO at the top. What they have is like 20 or 30 leaders at the top, and then it's kind of like it's an hourglass, right? It's very thin. There's almost no middle management, and when you kind of start to look at that, I think that's kind of what things look like because you don't have the middle managers who have to do as much alignment anymore. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have that function. Right? It becomes incredibly important because as you move faster, as you get more, you have more diversity of decision making in your business. If you, as junior people, middle level people, need to think about, communicate across functions, right? The need for alignment isn't going to go down, right? The need for edge case management isn't going to go down. The way we do it might be different. I think there are three things to think about. The first is, in the information revolution, right? 1970, whatever, to 2008. It happened slowly enough that the workforce was able to retire out quite a bit. And so you had this kind of smoothing of the generations. Here, I think it's going to happen in like a decade, 15 years, as the world will be, the economy, the monetary system will be transformationally different. Like we saw this in the 1800s. Like we've seen this before. There's history about what this looks like. It'll just happen faster this time. We saw it in the 1970s. We've seen it, right? What's different this time is probably the speed. The other thing to think about is, today, unlike in those periods, 77% of the US economy is services. And when you innovate in services, basically everybody else copies you in the next 18 months. And so there's very little opportunity to monetize process innovation. I was talking to the head of a large semiconductor software design company. And he said, hey, we've increased our efficiency 100 times in the last decade, and we have not seen our margin grow. We've seen it shrink. So my point being that this accelerated innovation is going to become vital, but it's going to be because the performance expectations of your customers become so much greater. It's going to change the business models, it's going to change the products, so on and so forth. And so I don't know that headcount necessarily reduces. I think that the quality expectations, the innovation expectations will be dramatically greater than they are today in finance and in capital equipment.
Yeah, that really hits home in an industry where a lot of folks are trying to figure out how do we modernize the customer experience. But what you're saying is we need to even be thinking beyond just modernizing, because the expectations for performance and quality of the customer experience is definitely going to be increasing, maybe beyond what folks are ready for.
Geometrically, just to take a little jump here and then we'll come back because it's important. You kind of think about the development of the internet in Google, right? From 1998, where like I remember when I first touched it, and it was like, oh my, this is it. Like this is the one. To today, right? And we saw the internet develop on top of it. In the next couple of years, what we're going to see is that we have what are called agentic AI, where AI goes out to not just its own database, which is what's happened up until this year, and like answers questions, kind of sometimes, but it goes to other databases, right? So it'll search the entire internet, every open database, and get information and pull it back and customize it to an interface that you want, whether that's some AI avatar that talks to you, or whether it's some text thing or PowerPoint deck. My point being, in that world, right, the customer experience is radically different. It's not about your website presentation and your brand colors. Like they're going to strip all that out, because that's all about manipulating the customer into making a decision that benefits you. They're going to have tools that are going to make sure that the decisions benefit them. And so we need to start thinking about that kind of world, and that those tools being, an order of magnitude better than they are today. Right? Maybe 30 times better than they are today. And that these tools they're just at the beginning, and so there's a good chance that ramps even faster.
It's exciting to think about, but it's also overwhelming, because there are a lot of folks that are just trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Let alone trying to get ahead of this.
So I think a really important idea about timing, right? There's kind of this idea in transformation, change management, right? Like you don't want to be too early and you don't want to be too late, And I think about, was it Kodak that was, in re-engineering the firm by Hammer and Champy, which was like the big transformation thing in the late 80s, early 90s. They talk about Kodak and how it digitally transformed early and how it was ahead of the game. You don't necessarily want to be ahead of the game, and you certainly don't want to be. I worked with the Yellow Pages in the early 2010s, right? You don't want to be where they were at with Google with a 15-year head start. So, like in the middle is this kind of Goldilocks zone that we mythically want to be in. The reality with AI is, because it's an exponential technology, right? We want to be ahead, not behind. And so how do we get there? How do we keep experimenting? How do we keep exploring? How do we get our junior people exploring and feeding up to us? right? How do we align our senior leaders with interns, right? And let the interns lead, right? Let senior leaders make judgment calls. But often their assumptions about what works and what's possible will be untrue. And so how do you let the junior people lead? I think that's going to be incredibly important in the next couple of years, because you can't be behind, and you don't necessarily want to scale ahead, but you need to understand exactly what you need to scale and how. And so you need to have that experimentation all the way through your organization. And
that's a big shift.
Going bottom up instead of top down.
Yeah. This is actually, it's got me thinking, because to think about how we're collaborating with LLMs, ChatGPT and whatever, a lot of it is that sort of a model, because you're bringing your thoughts to the table and then you collaborate with AI to expand on those thoughts and enrich them. But then you have to come back like the senior manager and the junior employee, and you're validating those answers and is it correct? Is it hallucination? Is it actually relevant? Just the way you would in coaching a person, but now you're doing it at scale and at higher speeds as well.
And every time it learns how to do a thing for you, it learns how to do a thing for everybody.
Yes.
This is cool. This is going to be the next transformation in the next 2 years, is once it learns how to do it for a senior leader, it learns how the senior leader thinks, and then it scales it out. Has to, you do it once and it thinks many. You teach it
so many possibilities. So when we're thinking about how the world of work is evolving, you started out talking about just the speed of change. What else are you seeing there? And also, like, what should leaders be asking to move beyond automation hype to more thoughtful integration? Because based on what you were just talking about, it really is a human and AI collaboration. But I get the sense from a lot of leaders that, we're just buying another software tool, we're going to plug it in, and magic is going to happen.
Well, if you believe that AI is a chat bot, that makes sense. If you understand that this is a very different way of working and thinking and collaborating, it gets very different. That's my first thought. The second is to move past the hype. What are the actual problems, right? In your world, you have much more supply chain geopolitical complexity, right? You have much more financial projection uncertainty. In your customers' world, right, in the buyer world, you have massive demographic issues and things like manufacturing, right? And you have probably in the next 5 years, and particularly in places like manufacturing, significant shifts in the product life cycle of the goods. In the world of services, right? So you're leasing printers or financing printers, right? Like, what does the office look like in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
So you have so much uncertainty in this situation. And what I think you want to do is not think about AI as a technology, but think about what are those mega trends that we know will hit. And how do we use the technology to offset those, provide value and services because our customers haven't thought through it ahead of time? And how do we be just like one step ahead of the stupid? And talking about like having a 5-year plan, those don't work. But what I am saying is, like, if you spend the time to really understand what happens next, we can know 80, 90% of it. And we can have that 10% unknown, and we can block around that by asking 2 really important questions, right? One, how would I change my actions if something new came to light? You don't need to know what it is, right? There's a financial, there's an operational, there's an economic, there's a strategic shift that I know will come to light in the next 5 years, and it will upend your business, right? I don't need to know what it is, but I do know that you can make a whole series of decisions to lean into that disruption instead of pulling back from it. And the second thing is, what would happen if my facts turned out to be untrue? So I look at a lot of people in manufacturing looking at the Trump administration and thinking that, hey, this would be a very manufacturing friendly presidency and like, my gosh, he's not going to go and punch Canada in the face or Mexico. I mean, they're our trade partners. They're dependent on this manufacturing base that he's all into, right? What would happen if our facts turned out to be untrue? How would we lean into that? And I'm not suggesting that you invest heavily. I'm just saying that you price the risk and you figure out how do you just have a little flexibility? How do you get 2 steps ahead of your competition? If a whole range of things change. So when I was at HP, and we've talked about this before, we looked at land war in Europe, energy shocks, inflation, a major pandemic coming out of China, lack of access to Taiwan, all kinds of things. And we came up with 5 innovations that would shift what was possible for the company if any of these things occurred. It's often not about like the one thing, oh, yes, the AI will happen, or, we'll be at war with Iran, which is the conversation as we're speaking about this today. It's what would happen if a range of things happened, and how would we shift our finances, our operations, our relationship with our external environment, and our strategy, so that we could lean in instead of simply mitigating those disruptions. And AI is an incredible tool, right? Because it can look across your organization at all of the things that are going on, can look across the industry at all of the things that are publicly known that are going on, and help you think about all of these variables at once. Maybe it doesn't do as well as if you hired McKinsey and spent millions of dollars on it. I don't know. But it certainly does it better than I do on my own on a Tuesday for 30 minutes. And I think that's the mindset shift.
Yeah.
Is that your intern has that.
And the other thing too, Jonathan, is just that the fact that I love what you said earlier. It cracked me up. I had to write it down. Be one step ahead of the stupid.
I saw that.
And you started looking up like, it's in my notebook right now. And oh my gosh, I didn't say it, but you did. So, but the thing is, the stupid is not stepping back and taking time to even do that little thought experiment, whether you have the tools or not. And now that you have the tools,
there's no excuse. You don't even need to do it.
Yeah, you can actually have the thought experiment done for you.
You can ask it. You can literally schedule ChatGPT, the pro version. At least I don't know if the free or the cheap version, but the pro version.
I don't know. We pay for it.
But you can schedule it, and you can say, "Hey, look at all of the conversations I've had in the last week, and tell me what I'm missing." Just every Friday at 9 a.m., just give me a download 1,200 words. And it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. It's just that you are doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, right? When we think about the things that AI should do, how do we think about it, right? It's almost like impossible to think about something being 30 times better, right? Like it's just like, but you can ask kind of 3 questions, right? What do we believe AI will do that we cannot? And try and put it on a timeline. But then what are the things AI can do that we should not? So if you're a middle manager, like when I was a middle manager, I was spending 65% of my time in alignment meetings. That seems profoundly not like a good use of time. And then the third thing is, what can AI do that you won't? And it's that last thing that I think is most important. I will not look back at all of my notes on Friday at 9 a.m. and figure out where I've gone wrong and what I might have missed. I'm not going to do it. You can just schedule AI to do that every morning or every Friday morning at 9 a.m., give you that 2-minute report. And it might or might not be good or right, but it's going to be better than what you did.
Yeah.
I think it's that question of what are all of those things that would improve my performance, improve my quality, that I'm not even thinking about because they're just like annoying or way too high effort.
Well, and it also really opens the door for more thinking about outcomes instead of like the actual tasks that you're doing. So like, what's the outcome of reading a big report on something? It's because you want a few insights that you can use in something else. And so, I mean, one of the things I've found, and I'd love to know examples from your world beyond the ones you shared, like there are a lot of things that I just plain don't read
Mhm.
now because AI can read.
Mhm.
And why would I spend my time doing that when it can read for me, pull out the insights, and then I can find the areas that it might be worth my time to dive deeper into that reading, and it really helps me to be more strategic and thoughtful about where I am applying my human energy and then leveraging the AI capabilities to enhance that in a new way. But, it is a different way to think about working and also rethinking the value that you bring to a thing.
And I would add to that all of these tools have an agenda. They have a corporate agenda that is not yours. And so it's really easy to feel like you're getting the information because it's being pre-digested for you. But the first thing that you discover as a senior leader is that everybody has an interest and you can't trust any of the facts. Right. And one of the ways to do that is by BS detection, like asking 37 questions down. Right. The former CEO of HP, he used to like matrices. And he didn't know this, but he had a tell, which was the second one from the left on the top was always the fact he would ask about. Always.
I love that.
But my point is, as a leader, you develop these BS detectors, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it's really easy with these tools that are literally more persuasive than humans to fall into their frame instead of framing your own. And so it's that kind of balance, I think, that we're going to have to find of getting out, talking with people, going and having more dinner conversations with random people, playing more golf, like whatever it is that you do than ever before, just to get out of that bubble.
Yes. Oh,
and
yes.
It's more important than ever before. And it's less and less comfortable than in my entire lifetime to go and meet with people in different socioeconomic contexts, to go and meet people in different geographic contexts, right? We're moving faster than ever before. So that sounds like a pain in the neck, but it's the most important thing because it's the only way I know to reframe one's perspective. That's why I travel the world. That's why I bring leadership teams to places like Kiev, to places like Shenzhen, to places like Silicon Valley and the Consumer Electronics Show. Like I do it every month to understand what's actually there.
Yeah.
Because it's so different than what's in the news, and it's certainly so different than what's in ChatGPT.
Well, yeah, but the other thing too is, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is if we spend all our time interacting with these tools, it's artificial connection, it's artificial intelligence and artificial information and all the and thinking, artificial creativity. It makes me crave more and more authentic human to human connection, because no machine can interpret the world the way we can as humans. I mean, the machines don't have the same senses that we do. I mean, you can hook it up to sensors, but it's not the same as the way that we interpret and sense and make meaning of the information that we're faced with.
I think that's true, but I also think as an inventor, like what really struck me about the early versions of ChatGPT was, people would say this isn't being creative. And I would look at it and say it's being creative in the same way that I as an inventor am. It's doing exactly the same things. And so I think there's this two-sided thing where in some ways it is so human, right? In terms of just the ADDness, the hallucination, and that importance for that to creativity. On the other side, it is completely inhuman, right? And that it doesn't think in the same way we do. It may know a lot more, but it thinks, if that's the word, and it's not really the right word.
Yeah, I have a hard time using that word, but
very differently.
I've seen the creativity of it, and I leverage that a lot to expand on my own ideas and to explore new possibilities, because what I understand about creativity, for at least, for myself, a lot of it is about connecting the dots in new and interesting ways. And AI can take in so many more dots and connect them so much faster. My first time experiencing this was when back in 2019, I was playing with an AI-enabled tool, and it was coming up with examples for our new logo for TomorrowZone. And I was just blown away at how fast it could just like, boom, here's 100 different ideas based on the few inputs that and preferences that you shared. And then, I ended up taking that and narrowing down quickly and then working with a creative team of humans to finish the job. But it was my first entry into realizing, oh, wow, this is a collaboration that goes beyond just saving time. Like, I had one that was, negotiating time and place for meetings over email. And that was great for productivity. And it was a collaboration. But this was a collaboration to enhance creativity. And it blew my mind. And I'm like, oh, gosh, now what's coming next? And we're here. Now it's just a part of our everyday.
So here's a pro tip. If you want to invent, create it, more innovative. So there was this crazy Russian, and he invented this approach to invention called TRIZ. And like he's some super analytical, kind of mildly on the spectrum guy. And he like builds out this matrix that's periodic tables of all of the ways that engineers invent. And it's called TRIZ.
How do you spell that?
TRIZ.
Okay.
And it's impossible to use because you have to like take this thing and add it to that thing. And it's like, it's like some weird like board game, like technology thing for, people who are way too into Dungeons and Dragons. And so it worked for him, but it really didn't work for anybody else. The thing about AI is it's really good at TRIZ. And so if you can just spend a few minutes and ask it, like, explain how TRIZ works to me. Now let's take a look at whatever my next problem is, and let's use that kind of thinking and coach me through how I would make a best decision. And it will blow your head. The thing isn't that AI is incapable of being insanely creative. It's that we still need to teach it kind of like exactly how we want it to be creative. It can expand our potential in mind-blowing ways.
So definitely going to do that experiment. I can't wait to try that out. Thank you for that. So for fun, just a couple of quick things. So what is one myth about AI in the workplace that you would just love to see retired?
The AI is about chatbots. I think we need to separate how we think about brains versus minds. So the way our organizations are built today is that there's a big brain at the top, right? And it goes down and people have less and less responsibility going down. And so you really have one mind, and that one mind is at the top. Or maybe it's the C-suite, or maybe it's the staff. But my point being that in the world of AI, it's a distributed mind, right? It works much less like a human and much more like an octopus. So a human has like one brain, right? An octopus has 9 major brains, right? It has the small one in its head, but then it has one attached to each arm. And when you take a look at how like an octopus moves, right, what you see is that one tentacle moves in some random direction and another one's going another way. And then they slowly orient into that kind of gorgeous chaos ballet. And it turns out it's incredibly efficient. And the reason for that is that you have distributed intelligence. You have one mind. But the thing down at the bottom is making some decisions, and it's rolling up and it's rolling up. And then there's 8 brains that are around the arms, the tentacles. They're talking to each other and making decisions together and coordinating together. And then telling the big brain what they just did. Right? The big brain always has a dashboard of what's going on, and it can always override what's going on. But the innovation and the action and the change is happening far faster than they could understand the situation. And in a world of radical change, in a world where, I don't know, we might be at war with Iran tomorrow. Could be fun. Your tentacles need to move far faster than you can. And the cool thing, the amazing thing about AI is not that it's a great chatbot. It's that it can look at all of that information and help you coordinate it, or help it coordinate faster than you can. Help you get a dashboard of it. Help your intern get a dashboard of what's going on across the whole organization. Right? It sounds insane, right? It sounds completely insane. But when you think about what you're able to do with these tools today, auto transcripts and summaries and analysis and going and searching all kinds of databases, right? Just multiply that out by about 30 times. And this is what it looks like. I don't think
that image.
So how do you become an octopus organization?
Wow. I haven't heard it described that way before, but it makes so much sense to rethink, like you were saying in the beginning, radically reimagining how we organize business. And when we bring AI into it, the way we organize, but also coordinate together as a team. I love the octopus metaphor. So, okay, here's another one.
By the way, quick plug.
Okay.
The topic of my next book coming out this fall.
Oh, wow. I didn't know you were writing another book.
Of course, I can't stop.
Awesome. Okay. It's coming out this fall. So let's watch for that. Do you have a working title yet?
It's called AI and the Octopus. How
Right.
to lead the super intelligent firm.
Very cool.
The idea is there might be science fiction, artificial intelligence, but what I can tell you is when you take the things we have today and multiply them out, it changes the way we think as an organization. And we might have super intelligence in AI, but we as organizations will certainly become super intelligent.
Okay, I cannot wait to dig into that, Jonathan. Have to let me know when that's coming out. So, can you finish this sentence? AI is like blank. We know it's not a chatbot.
AI is a distributed mind.
AI is a distributed mind.
The web was distributed knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It organized distributed knowledge. AI organizes our distributed mind as a species. Organizes how we think together. And I think that's the profound shift. It's not the technology. It changes how we're able to collaborate.
Not just with the machine, but with each other.
It's an incredibly human technology.
You're kind of blowing my mind right now.
I was in Chile and I was using ChatGPT, and this woman didn't speak Spanish, and didn't speak English, and I don't speak enough Spanish. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, maybe I can just ask it to translate for us in real time. And it literally just translated the whole conversation. As we were speaking, it was speaking to us.
What was that interaction to? So was it actually speaking to you in voice, or were you using
in voice? No,
wow.
In voice. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was, and it would go from Spanish to English to Spanish to English. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, that is so beyond like back in the day trying to have a conversation with somebody in Russian and paging through the Russian English dictionary.
Yeah, no, it was completely natural, and I've done it a couple of times. I did it a year ago. I was in Mexico City, and I wanted to buy a coffee, and I was like, "Oh, well, this will be really interesting," and it kind of worked. But this was a whole conversation we had.
Wow, that's a game changer.
Yeah, so it translates not just between information and ourselves. It doesn't just collate that. It translates between human brains.
That's the game changer. As I'm talking with you, I can't help it. I keep being returned to Star Trek and the Borg.
The answer is yes, there's technology, but we're still monkeys. That part's not changing. That's not changing. We all want to sniff each other and scratch each other's backs. And like all that stuff's still going to be true. And we're all going to want love, and we're all going to want to be loved, and we're all going to want to be taken care of. And we're all, hopefully, most of us are going to want to take care of other people. And that human thing, hopefully we choose to use this technology to accelerate that.
Absolutely. I love that. So, and that is such a lovely thought. I'm going to shift gears as we wrap this up. We've talked about a lot of different things and new ways to think about how we move into the future, how we adopt this technology and use it for good. What are a couple of small steps that our listeners could take right now to prepare themselves and their teams for a future that's shaped by humans plus AI?
The first thing is to make that list we were talking about what will AI be able to do that we can't? What will AI be able to do that we shouldn't? And what will AI be able to do that we won't? And by the highest quality version of Anthropic or ChatGPT. I'm on the $200 a month version of ChatGPT, which seems a little insane, but it's better. And it gets you 6 months ahead in the future. And ask it to, on Friday, go research the internet. Find out what about this list is now possible. Because every week something new will be true.
Oh, I love that.
The second thing is to kind of ask, where are we fighting the last war instead of the next one, right? Where are we focused on all of those things that have gone wrong in the past that we know how to survive, instead of the future in which we must thrive, right? And if you are an amalgamated organization, or if you have a strong structure, because like a lot of the people in your space are relatively regulated, ask, where are we suffering from the elephant problem, right? Where are those situations where everybody knows something, but no one's looking at everything? So everyone's looking at the parts and everyone's missing the whole. I can help profoundly.
That is so good.
And you can ask it those questions. And the cool thing is that, it has sucked down every Harvard Business Review article ever. And it has all kinds of frameworks to help you think through challenges, to help you think through problems. And it can change the way you innovate, the way you think. We were talking about Triz earlier. It can change the way you invent. And what we're seeing every single day is the unleashing of human potential at a scale we have never before seen, at a rate we have never before seen in human history. Remember, this thing is 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine what happens when it turns 7.
Yeah.
It stops crawling and it starts running and going to school. That's what we're about to see. And I think we're just looking at this thing and saying, wow, it's a cute infant.
Well, you have definitely inspired us to think bigger, Jonathan. I just really want to thank you for joining me again today and geeking out a little bit on what's possible now, but also what's next.
And that's the thing, is like, just get one step ahead of the stupid, right? And then you get to spot, you get to lead, you get to win what happens next. It's so easy. It's a mindset shift. It's not an effort shift. It's not a money shift. It's not a time shift. It's not a time set shift. It's just a question of how you choose to be in the world. It's your choice. So win your future.
I love it. Win your future. So with that, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks again, Jonathan. So awesome to have you on the show. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Until next time, I encourage you to stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.